Watch the show.
You are now listening to the best show in the universe, The Anthony Rogers Show. You probably wish that this was your show, but it's not. It's The Anthony Rogers Show.
This episode is sponsored by Spice Dog Provisions. They sent me a bunch of amazing flavors, some that I don't think are on the market yet that I tried on my new show Unboxed. That's you can find on YouTube, youtube.com/Anthony Rogers. Also, these sauces are fucking awesome. They have some classic flavors like Ghost Ship and like an everyday sauce and stuff like that. And they're just really good sauce. So go to spicedogprovisions.com and tell them Anthony Rogers sent you.
I have other people saying or chop up samples and stuff like that, and that's kind of how it all started with like the vocal chopping, because like back when I was 15, 16 and just playing around with the digital workstation, which by the way I still use like a slightly updated version of that, but basically the same like outdated software that I used from when I was 15. And like I had bought this pack of like house vocals, like really cheesy house vocals, and I just started like chopping them up because that's all I had, because I didn't know anybody who sang or was good at singing, and I wasn't good at singing. So I just played around with that, and then the rest was just kind of history.
That's awesome, man. It's very honest. Like, how old are you now? Like, you look 15 with a mustache. Like, you look like you have a baby face. Like, how old are you right now?
I know. I started growing the mustache during quarantine because I was like, maybe it'll make me look older and more sophisticated. But I will be 32 in May.
Damn, so we're basically the same age, but I feel like I look a decade older than you. Like, you look like, you have your youthful
appearance. That's what you would look like without the beard.
Maybe, yeah, and a better haircut. If I had a better haircut and shaved ever, we'd
like
be twins.
That covers half your face. I can't even grow that. I wouldn't even be able to if I tried.
I don't even have another face. That's why I had to grow a beard. Like the lower half of my face is missing. It's yeah, I'm the only one on this island like that, and also the only one on this island.
You don't have a volleyball?
No, not yet. So you've been in music for a second though. You've done a lot of shit in a short amount of time, I'd say, man. Like honestly, like it seems like a short amount of time at least. Like looking at your shit, like I don't know. So you have a TV show coming soon too?
No.
Or is that a channel on Roku or something?
It is a little confusing, but so the RWR TV thing is something I'm setting up for Twitch streaming, because I don't play video I do like playing video games, but I don't make the time to like play it like I used to as a kid and everything. And so like I didn't want to do something like a lot of people were wanting more interactive stuff, and just I thought it would be really fun to do something like that on Twitch, and have a Twitch channel. But if I was going to do a Twitch channel, I wanted to do it like kind of like a old school variety TV channel type thing. So that's why I kind of branded it as RWR TV and did the graphics like that, because I wanted to do stuff where people get to join me while I work on stuff, or just answer questions, have people on, maybe and then also play video games, but probably like drunk or something, because I'm not very good. So I was gonna do like Bubsy 3D would be the first game, just to mess around. But that's just kind of been put on hold for a little bit, just because one of those projects that started, but I have to push back a little bit because I have so much else going on. So once I wrap everything else up, then I can focus on that.
No, I could definitely relate to half-finished products like that. It's awesome though, man. It's a cool idea. Like Twitch seems fun, man. It seems like it's fun, like game to get into. I haven't done too much with it, but it seems cool.
Yeah, I didn't think about it for a while. I wasn't like in that space because I didn't know much about it, and I thought, oh, just for video game people. But when I kind of looked into it and realized that people were doing all sorts of different things on Twitch, that weren't necessarily just playing video games, then I was like, oh, okay, so maybe I could do something really cool with it. And then when I started playing around with making the graphics for it, it just snowballed, and I'm like, oh, okay, I could make something cool. To be totally honest, I don't understand Twitch streaming, like as far as like the video game streaming, that much. I have some buddies of mine who do it, and you know, they are successful at it, and they have a lot of people that show up and watch. I personally don't do that very often. I guess I have a too short of an attention span, so watching other people play video games just doesn't really do much for me. But that being said, like, I realized that there's a big community aspect to it that people enjoy. So when people were like, "Oh, you should Twitch stream," I'm like, "Why would I do that? Like, I'm not a video game I'm not like a professional player or anything like that." But I realized that, you know, there's a big community aspect to it that could be pretty useful in having that better connection with the fan base and more people.
No, it's cool, man. How did you get into music or art or whatever? Because I think like you do a lot of things. How'd you get into it originally, I guess?
My buddy Dan gave me this CD, and it had, like, at the time a pirated copy of the digital art workstation that I use now. Like, I bought like a version that's one step up, and it's called Acid, and it was by this company called Sonic Foundry, and then I think Sony bought it out. I think that's how it went, and it was like, that was version 5, and I think now I'm just on like 7. Like, it's not much of a difference. I just haven't learned anything new, but yeah. So he just gave me the CD. It was like, hey, you can, you know, kind of play around, because he was in a band, in like a metal band, and I didn't really know any instruments or anything, but I really wanted to get into like electronic music, and I just kind of didn't know how. And this was back before, you know, you had SoundCloud or even like YouTube or anything like that. So it's not like now where you can just like hop onto YouTube and like, how do I get started with this, or what do I use with this? So I was like, okay, I played around with it, and started out with just like taking free loops off the internet and playing around with them. And I think the first ever thing I did was I mashed up a Nine Inch Nails song with a song by this cello band called Rasputina called Dwarf Star. Really, really fucking weird song. Like, it was very abstract, and I just took the beat from the Nine Inch Nails song on top of that song, and if I were to listen to it now, it would probably sound like shit. But I thought it was cool, and so I just kept playing with it, and just, you know, cutting up the loops and just kind of playing around, and then that eventually kind of grew into me using the MIDI more, and just kind of, you know, building my own beats from, you know, sample packs, and, you know, buying up those and going through many desktop computers of libraries. And yeah, and then I kind of started out just kind of doing like remix contests on this site called Acid Planet, which was for oh, my voice cracked, so I guess I'm still going through puberty. That's why I can't grow a beard. Yeah, and so I just kind of started out that way, and once the SoundCloud era hit, I started putting my stuff on there, and that's kind of a lot of where I found my initial audience back in like 09, 010, or 09, 2010.
That's awesome, man. That's so you play festivals and stuff too, like shit like that?
No.
You don't?
I've done like
you had like the right kind of music for it, so it threw me off when I asked that. Like, you had the
I've done a handful of live shows, and basically so far it's just it's me like DJing my own tracks. I have this fluorescent pink S4 DJ controller, and so I just kind of taught myself how to use that to do live shows, because I mean, like, people were asking, and I was getting asked to do like this arcade. The first one I did was an arcade bar that a friend of mine opened called The Grid in Mesa, and I think it's still around. It's got new ownership, but I don't know if it's still around. I don't know if it survived the pandemic or not. But it was really cool, and I was just like, I'm just gonna go for it. But previous to that, I had just kind of been too awkward and nervous to really do live shows, because I was like, I'm not a real musician. Like I don't know any instruments, or like nothing set up for live play. So I never really had that in mind for it. So when I first started doing it, I was just like, okay, this is like cool. But when I decide to go on tour, then I'll want to like come up with something really cool visually as well, to make it really worth it. And oddly enough, when I was finally around to getting that set up, beginning of 2020, had some stuff set up, and then everything went haywire and everything got canceled, and then here we are.
That's like the best, like I feel like that actually happened to you, but it's also like the best excuse in entertainment. It's like, man, I was going to blow up in 2020, bro. I had the tour mapped out. I had the fucking movie deal. It's like the best, like I believe what you're saying, which is funny. Like, I feel like that, like, I just feel like that anybody, that's the best excuse for anybody. Like they'd be like, dude, it was going to go hard. It was going to go so fucking hard. It just makes you.
And the funny part is I had made so many excuses before then. I was finally ready to just get over my bullshit, get over my fear, everything possibly going wrong. And so I was like, oh, right, cool. So like this guy who was like a Super Smash Brothers tournament a guy, he was like, oh, I really dig your music and we want to set you up and do like the tournament, and that was going to be in New York, and we set that up, and then something in San Francisco or San Diego, I can't remember, and so I was like starting to get it together, and then it all just hit. So I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm gonna put this on hold and not finish my live setup quite yet, because it's not gonna happen anytime soon. So I guess the universe was just like, nope, sit back down. You're not going anywhere.
Yeah, it's a crazy visual. It'd be a good cartoon visual. Like you're about ready to jump in the pool and like pool closed. It's like
yeah, and
crazy to think.
I mean, like I was excited about it too, and I am excited to continue those plans. But I also love creating, and it did give me a lot of time to work on stuff, and I did like a whole album within a few months, which is the Savage Summer album that I didn't even plan on putting out, and it just happened, and I was like, I had all this creative energy and time, and I was just like, I'm just gonna go for it. And then I re-released my first album / mixtape, Electro Isn't Dead, because it'd been literally 10 years since it first dropped. And so I was like, oh, let me revamp this and put it out as just kind of like a celebration of 10 years as Robots with Rayguns, I guess. Well, a little more than that, but.
That's awesome, man. How'd you come up with the band name or the project name or whatever? Like, I don't know what they call it in this generation, but like, how'd you come up with the name Robots with Rayguns?
I don't remember.
I've never fucking heard that answer.
Cool. I literally just think it sounded cool. And I think that and I was in college at the time, I just started college, which I ended up dropping out because, wanted to be a rock star, obviously. And I think the logo, the original logo, which is kind of more of like a Letterman jacket looking font logo, kind of came about as I was coming up with the name, because I was like, okay, I kind of came up with the name, I guess, and thought that it would look cool as a logo with the W and the R's coming off the end.
Yeah.
And I made an album, and it was like very electro, but like very silly, kind of like satire electro. Somehow it got lost. Like messed up my hard drive and all of it got lost. So I ended up starting over, and that's what ended up being Electro Isn't Dead. But yeah, it just started off as a side project actually, because at the time I was making industrial music. So it's like really depressing, like Moby meets Nine Inch Nails, just kind of really crazy dark industrial music. But I was using those chopped up vocals in it, and so that kind of carried over. But it was just always meant to be just kind of like a fun, silly, like alter ego type thing, where it to kind of balance it out, because like, you know, when you're making music that's kind of heavy, and that's kind of where my headspace was at the time, but sometimes you don't really feel that way, and so that was kind of an outlet for that. And I didn't anticipate it taking off the way it did. So I think if I had known that, I might have maybe rethought the pseudonym a little bit in retrospect, because I think now it's okay, but for a long time I would constantly get mistaken for a group of people because it's plural. Didn't think about that, and it's just kind of like a mouthful to say. So I wish I came up with something cooler.
Yeah, I think the electronic industry, like our the whole all the artists in there, they kind of like they're like next level. You don't know how to classify them. Like I called you a singer by accident, even. I mean, like, I feel like it's the same. It's the same thing. You want a way to package it in a traditional way of how music was packaged from like 1964 to like 1998, and then like now there's like this huge like we're like artists are like redefining the industry to where it's like it's hard to put you in like a fucking like category and be like, okay, like I mean there's so many subgenres of electronic music and music in general, and it's just like it's like we just want to classify everybody in these new labels. So it's hard to even describe what's happening in electronic music, I think, to people that have been music fans for a long time, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And I don't even know, like, a lot of times how to describe myself. Like, I guess when it comes down to it, I would just call myself an artist, because I do create a lot of different types of things. And, you know, you had mentioned that I had done a lot in like a short period of time, which to me, when like I hear that, it's kind of weird to me, because from my perspective, it's like all those things that I did finish and put out, there's a whole bunch of stuff that I had in my mind going on that could have happened as well. So to me, it's like, you know, as prolific as my output seems, there's a lot more that I probably could have or almost did, and I think I'm just really bad at time management. So I think as I'm getting better at that, the more productive I am. But there's always stuff going through my mind, and things I want to do, from, you know, like painting and graphic design and all sorts of stuff. My original love was film. I wanted to be a filmmaker since I was like 6 or something. I always wanted to be
You seem like a filmmaker. You seem like one, man. I wouldn't rule it out, man. A filmmaker's like an old man's game, I think, because it takes a while to build up resources and shit. I mean, you know, it's like, I mean, anybody can make a fucking movie. So I mean, you can make a movie and be a filmmaker. But I'm saying, like, you have that vibe, though. I could see that, man. Like, I think that you probably do well in that. Do you make your own graphics and shit, or is that like something? Or like, are you the artist that does that too, or?
That's where it does get confusing, because I don't and I do. Like, there's a lot of it that I do myself.
I had a feeling for some reason.
More simple stuff, but the artwork on like the album covers are not me. So up until Savage, so the last one was Cult Pop, thus far. But other than Electro Isn't Dead, you know, from RWR to Fresh As It Gets Wild Style, Slow Jams, and Cult Pop, were all done by Reno Masad, who is a New York-based illustrator who, you know, I've known since like 2012, and, you know, we just kind of met, and, you know, he dug the music and I dug his art, and we just started collaborating together on those album covers, and it just was a really good fit, and so it just kind of became consistent. And so those album covers I would not be able to do because I'm not that good, but his just kind of really bright vector street style really just kind of matched the sound I was going for, and it was really nice to collaborate on those because, you know, being an artist that has some, you know, control issues where you want to make sure everything, you know, is the way you want it. It's good to be able to, you know, collaborate with somebody that really gets your vision. So I really do feel like he was able to make what was in my head a reality on a skill set that I just didn't really have for visual arts as much as he does.
That's cool. That's cool. What's that tattoo say on your arm?
Oh, no jacket required. So it's exactly how it is on the Phil Collins album cover. I kind of copied that and put that there, and I overestimated the amount of people that would recognize it.
Yeah, Phil Collins is fucking huge. Makes sense. Like older people or like.
I thought that maybe people might not recognize it, but I underestimated the amount of people that still wouldn't know once I said Phil Collins. And I was like, oh, okay. So, yeah, like, I mean, you know, when people ask about it, I just say, you know, oh, it's the Phil Collins album. And if they know it, then we connect. And if they don't know who Phil Collins is, then I'm like, fuck off. Like, you know. Or I have to be like Tarzan. They're like, oh, okay.
Oh yeah, it's sad. That's how Smash Mouth got typecast with Shrek, man. Like these animated features are ruining fucking legendary. I wouldn't call Smash Mouth legendary, but Phil Collins is legendary, and like that probably ruined it. But like, I like what they gave him shit about it though. He's like, well, I had to pay for my 5th divorce or some shit. Like, that's or something like that. So he said, so I actually respect Phil, man. He's a singer and a drummer. It's gonna be fucking hard.
And I actually got it because of that first album that I created, the Electro Isn't Dead. When I made that, I started it when I was still back east in Baltimore, and I moved to Phoenix just kind of on a whim. I was just like, I'm tired of the winter. I want to get out of here, get out of my bubble, just go for it. So I drove cross country, moved to Phoenix, was inspired in kind of a different way. So I wasn't really making like industrial music anymore. And, you know, when I was creating that, I was listening to that album a lot and feeling like, okay, this is kind of like an example of like a perfect pop album. And so part of my, you know, journey in creating Electrons and Dead was just kind of like trying to use the templates of really great pop albums to just kind of construct how a pop album would be if I had created it. And that's kind of a similar mindset to how I go about pretty much every album. And I definitely feel like I'm much more of an album artist than a lot of people are these days. I think that's not really that common anymore with the digital and streaming era. You know, a lot of it's one-off singles. You know, people don't sit and listen to like an entire album anymore, which, you know, it's cool. Like that's how things go, and you know, things change and everything. But I just think creatively, I just can't get away from that because it's so satisfying to kind of sit down and construct like an era and have a visual style with it and a sonic style and kind of weave that all together instead of kind of just throwing out different things sporadically. It's just more fun for me, and I have a lot of fun with it.
That's great, man. Well, throw on some social media links where people could find your music and stuff before we get on here, man. Like, what? Probably traditional places, but what are the good ones? You know.
I mean, I guess as a lot of people stream on Spotify. So like the people who, you know, don't get the CDs and cassettes and stuff like that, I think streaming wise, definitely on Spotify. You know, so other than Bandcamp and Spotify, that's pretty much primarily where it is. Do people even use iTunes anymore? I don't even know.
It's Apple Music now, so I mean, you have to have a subscription and stuff. Like people use it, but it's like it just depends. I'd say It depends, man. Apple split their game up. You know, they have like Apple Podcasts and Apple Music. I mean, they split it up where Spotify has its own one. It's an interesting market right now. So I don't exactly know where it's going, but I see what there's just a lot going on right now, man. Like,
yeah, I'm confused. I don't even know if they still have iTunes anymore. If they just basically made it Apple Music, or
I think they just call it Apple Music now. I think it's the same thing, but they separate music and podcast basically. It seems like, and that may hurt it a little bit in my opinion. I don't know.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I think the fan base is kind of split. So you have a lot of
Yeah.
It's kind of like half and half, where a lot of people stream versus the people that get the cassette tape or the CD and like sit down and listen to it from beginning to end as more of like an experience.
What should somebody listen to the show and finds out about you the first time? What should they look up first about you music wise? I guess that'd be interesting. I guess. How do they start? How do they start down the rabbit hole? You know.
I think that's something that it's hard for me to understand.
Like, I bet it's a creator.
Because I hear different things from different people as far as that. Like, you know, I kind of have to like ask people to see. And a lot of people, it's, you know, Wild Style or Fresh as It Gets. But yeah, it's kind of from all around, and sometimes it's just kind of like weird little places on the internet, like Reddit or YouTube or things like that that I don't really even use or think about, other than, you know, the ones that I use. Spotify discovery, a lot of people find me through that, and from Twitter. I'm just kind of active on Twitter a lot, so a lot of people have found me through that.
This episode is possible because of sponsors like Yummy Lotus. They're a jam, and they're like a spicy jam mostly. Like my favorite flavor is the Blueberry Reaper. So you can go to yummylotus.com and get some badass like jam flavors. You need them in your life. And tell them Anthony sent you.
From being active a lot. And then there are people that follow me on Twitter that have no idea that I make music at all, which is always interesting when somebody's like, I've been following you for years and I didn't even know you made music. And I was like, what the fuck did you think I do? Like, I'm posting all this music. Where do you think it's coming from? So it's kind of funny.
That's cool, man. That's cool.
But I just see it as kind of like a playground. And I don't take Twitter very seriously. I know a lot of people do, and that becomes like a big thing sometimes. But I don't, and I don't think it's meant to be taken very seriously. So I'm sure that there are people that probably don't realize when I'm not being serious on Twitter, which is most of the time. I've gotten messages. One woman one time like messaged me like really concerned, thinking that I was entrenched in the Illuminati. And then at a certain point I realized, like, oh shit, this woman is for real. Like, she really is concerned and thinks that I'm in the Illuminati. So of course I just went with it and kept trolling her basically and saying like, I can't talk about this right now. Like, they're listening. But yeah, so I just kind of stopped thinking about it and put it out of my mind of whether or not, you know, people think I'm serious or think I'm, you know, weird or trolling or you know, promoting annoyingly. Like, I just don't care anymore. So it's just kind of more fun that way, and it's just a great place to meet different people that you never normally would have.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's how I met you originally. Cause you're making like funny ass posts on other shit. Like, I think you're like either you were commenting on like something that in like a funny way, or you're posting it and someone shared it. I forgot exactly how, but I remember that you're just like fucking making up shit too. Like that's what Twitter's for. It's entertainment for sure. I totally agree on that. And like too many people do take it way too seriously. Like it's just I think someone took it so seriously. I'm suspended from Twitter and not allowed to use it just for making fun of people. Just like just like jesting. I think people. I don't know. I think it's a joke, but like not everybody does. You know, like you're saying about the lady believing in the Illuminati. Like people just believe anything they fucking read or anything they say.
And I think a lot of times it's hard for me to understand that perspective, because I think from my sense of humor comes from a very satirical place, and I think that that's kind of lost a lot nowadays. Like it just the people don't really get satire as much. Dude, I started watching this show on Netflix called The Circle just recently because I was like, what is this? This looks ridiculous. Like this weird.
Is that reality show?
Yeah, and
Okay, I've
I
seen it, yeah.
spent 2 full episodes thoroughly convinced that it was not actually a reality show, but like a satire. Like it was like making fun of reality shows, and they were all like comedic actors. Like I was convinced.
That almost seems like that. That's hilarious. It does seem like that.
Cannot be this trash. Like people cannot be this ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, it's the lack of a strong family, so people will do anything to get the attention of their parents, you know. So, but they do it vicariously through like just entertainment. They think if they're famous, that their parents will love them or something. It's this weird psychology thing. It's this weird. You see in America, huge, because everybody wants to be famous now, and nobody's talented.
And I just think it's funny because and it's kind of fascinating to me because I think I love ridiculous. I love, you know, campy, ridiculous shit that is just kind of off the wall. But but the difference is that there's that with the, you know, kind of wink and the self-awareness of the ridiculousness. And then there's where like you have no understanding that it is ridiculous and you take yourself very seriously. That's where it gets really weird, where sometimes I don't understand when people do take them so seriously because I think, oh, you know, it's so ridiculous, like it's on purpose, but it's not. So like that's why the Chainsmokers blocked me, because I made fun of them, and I'm thinking, you know, they came out with a song called #selfie, so they're like a parody band, like LMFAO, like they're having fun. I didn't realize that they took themselves seriously. I thought they were playing characters, and they didn't like that. And
what did you do? Like that's weird. Like what?
I don't remember exactly what the joke was, but
it's funny. I don't understand. I think the lack of tonality on the internet is what it is. Because like I feel like if you said the same thing with like how you look and like how you speak and stuff, and like people can kind of see you're like a prankster in person. I think you got that vibe. But I think like if it's in text, they're just like, what the fuck did you just say? You mean I think that happens a lot on the internet. People are just like mad about things that didn't really happen all the time, probably, you know.
And that's funny too, because I think that's what makes Twitter so great for that kind of dry delivery and discourse. You just have to have that mindset, I guess, and I do. So like to me, that kind of dry, straightforward delivery, it always seems humorous to me. And so, you know, a lot of people, I don't realize, you know, take it very seriously and everything, and then, you know, like they call me cheesy, and then so like I tweet back a photo of Kraft mac and cheese. Like that's kind of what you do, because I feel like as an artist, like, you just can't take yourself too seriously. You just can't take yourself that seriously. And so, you know, when somebody makes fun of me, like if it's funny, I'll go along with it. I'll retweet it. A lot of times people will even like, you know, come on board, even though they don't like you initially, or maybe they just wanted attention or something like that. But yeah, like, you know, make fun of me all you want, because I'm an artist. I'm putting myself out there, and, you know, my music, it, you know, sometimes can be cheesy and weird and different, and like I'm you know, I'm not unaware of that. And so I think, you know, everybody just needs to chill and just deal with it.
That's real. That's
Just don't let it bother me.
No, yeah, you can, man.
If I were like actually like legit famous, like it would be kind of hard to deal with, and I would probably just ignore it and just not even deal with it. But I'm like, I got music to promote, so I got to be on it.
Do you smoke a lot of weed, or you just naturally like that?
It's more so that I'm naturally like that. I don't smoke nearly as much as people I think I do, and I didn't for a long time. Like I only started to in my kind of late 20s to deal with anxiety. So I do, but not as much recreationally. It's primarily to deal with anxiety, and I do, use it kind of recreational, but it's more so just when I kind of need to or feel like I need to chill out, because there's always so much going on in my mind, that it just kind of helps me chill out and not overthink stuff. And then that's usually when I will go on Twitter, though. But a lot of times I'm actually completely stone cold sober, but you probably would not be able to distinguish on Twitter at what points I am and what points I'm not.
True, yeah.
No, not a whole lot of difference, to be frank.
No, I get that for sure. That's funny. Because I think weed makes people like more joking more so too. But like, yeah, I think that's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I think people are just like, I don't know what their deal is, man. Like everybody just wants to argue about shit constantly. They just want to fucking. I think it's the media bubbles. I think like when you said something kind of like triggered me a little, like triggered me like not like in an emotional way, but like in a thought, triggered a thought. Like when you're saying like you're like I'm not that famous, and I'm like honestly, if you break it down today, like there's so many more famous people because there's more channels to be famous in. To where like there's not just Ed Sullivan to be on or some shit, or Johnny Carson like back in the past American culture, pop culture. Now it's like, I mean, there's so, I mean, you could be TikTok famous, you could be YouTube famous, you could be Twitter famous, you could be fucking, I mean, you know what I mean? They could be like real life famous, maybe. I don't know if that's still a thing. But I mean, I think like, you mean, I don't even know, you mean, there's so many different subsects of fame. If you get a good fan base, I mean, there's no real difference really. I mean, I think there's just, it's just fame, you know? It's like, but I think that's like kind of how like, what I'm saying is like, I had a point to that all, but I forgot how I was connecting that. I had a really good point, but I forgot how I was connecting that shit. So let's pretend like that already happened, right? That was a good.
I definitely get what you're saying though, like, and it is definitely different now and kind of surreal and weird. But like I think the sad part is that when there's people that are known and have that celebrity or that fame for the sake of that, without like something that like you do, that's the reason why you are. I think it can be very destructive mentally, because that whole side of it is very warped and destructive. So the sweet spot would be an art, having your art shown and people appreciate it and not have to deal with the fame of it, because that can be very mentally warping, because then you're in this kind of bubble that a lot of times you kind of can't get out of, and I think that's a kind of a fascinating thing to look at. But when now you have all these people that are getting in that bubble, it's not healthy at all, because I think those people that have that big fame, especially when it happens very quickly or something like that, in the past it's always been one of those things where their lives are interesting, but there's a lot of darkness to it and a lot of loneliness to it that people don't get, and they're forever kind of warped by that lack of perspective. And I guess it's kind of why some people just completely run away from it and don't even want to be a part of it.
Yeah, I think people that aren't famous think it's like it's more fun to be famous than it is. Like just being like verified and stuff, like low level shit, like we're talking about, like just that, just like not like anything else, not filling amphitheaters, not like whatever the fuck else. Like people take that and just think life's so much more exciting. like but really, it's just like I think I must have at one point too. I guess like when I was, I mean, verified wasn't a thing when I was a kid, but I mean like just and that's just a general like example, but like or being in like movies or making music or something like that. It's like I think people think it's like way more interesting than it is, and I think I was caught up in that at one point too. Like I was like, man, that would be really cool to be in movies. I must be rich to be in movies, and I'm like, I'm in like 3 movies now, and I'm not rich yet. I'm like pissed off about it. It's like I'm almost like, what the fuck? I'm like, where's all this money I heard about? I'm like, I mean, you have it in like sponsorship and endorsement, but I mean, I'm just saying like this podcast that I just like I'm talking to you on a fucking hockey table right now. If there wasn't a green screen on here, you'd see a fucking like one of those airsoft hockey tables. That's what I'm talking to you on right now. You mean like they're not I don't know how to describe this. You had to have like a desk. You had to have like, you had to be in LA or New York at one time to talk to these people. You had to do all this shit. And it's just like, I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. The world's weird right now. And it's really just a will to power. Like it always was. Whoever's the strongest will gets whatever they want, really. You know, it's like more or less like, you know what I mean? Whoever works the hardest for it is the dumbed down version of that. But the same thing, like a will to power, you know?
And I think optimistically, when I think about it, it's like, I think optimistically that will end up oversaturating to the point where it kind of destroys it all completely, and then you just don't even have that anymore.
Have you read the Yellow Belly Sneetches from Dr. Seuss? Starbelly Sneetches, sorry, Starbelly Sneetches.
I don't think so. It doesn't ring a bell.
What you just said, like, reminded me of that, because, like, okay, so the concept was, like, if you had a star in your belly, you were, like, this, like, elite person type thing, like, kind of like what Verified does. Like, but then everybody had a star in their belly, and then not having one was good. It's like American culture, like, tends to reward what's rare. You know what I mean? So like if it's rare that everybody's like that, like you said though, I think like Andy Warhol said, everybody be famous for 15 minutes. We're kind of seeing that today. And like, I mean, it's just, and like what you can do out of that. I mean, there's a lot of people I watch, like you're talking about these people blowing up, having a hard time. I watch that all the time. These people will go viral and then like, they're like happy that they're in the press. And then all this kickback from all these people are like, fuck you, like showing up their house being like, fuck you. Like this porn star was telling me she would have people drive by her house and call her like names and shit. Like these small town like porn stars would get pissed. They're in the Bible Belt, and everyone finds out they do porn, and then they have all these people that drive by like "fuck you, slut," you know. It's like being crazy and shit. And I think they're like, I don't think you have to be prepared to handle any of this. That you have to deal with it. That anyone has to deal with it. Any level of like notoriety. You have to be good, man. And I think the way you take Twitter is is the best way. If you don't take it too seriously. You only really, it's like that Buddhist thing. You only really lose what you cling to, you know? So if you don't take it too seriously, I mean, you're going to have a good time. But if you take it too seriously and like, you're too easy to expose, like, he's like, I don't know how to describe. It's like people are always like, oh, I'm doxxed. I'm like, I ran for office. My address is just on a fucking website. You mean like I don't give a fuck? You mean like come to my house? You mean come after like watch me drink green tea? I guess I don't know. It's like like I don't fucking know. It just doesn't bother me. The idea of doxxed doesn't bother me. The idea of like any of the darkness in entertainment doesn't necessarily bother me. Because I don't let it. I feel like, and that's kind of like you seem like way more positive than me even. But like I feel like you just seem like a more like I claim to be positive, but I have my moments. You seem like you're way more positive, I think.
I try to be. I mean, sometimes it does kind of give me anxiety of, you know, the way things are and everything. But I think at a certain point, you kind of have to embrace the fact that like just privacy is dead and everybody's a weirdo and everybody has things that they don't want other people to know and see and act and everything. And so it's still work in progress. Like I'm still anxious about all kinds of stuff. I try and just push through that because I feel like once I get on the other end, I realize the biggest, you know, epiphany for me as an adult, you know, into my 30s is the realization that nobody really gives a shit. Like nobody gives a shit.
Yeah, dude, there's a Bukowski quote. It was like 5% of people hate you no matter what you do. 5% of people will love you no matter what you do, and then the rest will just not give a fuck. And like that's like no, I totally agree to that, man. Like that's the most real point ever. Like I think like
no matter how many times people will tell you that it just doesn't. You have to kind of go through a certain amount of life, I guess, to just kind of really let that sink in. And I think it's funny too because I feel like me as a person, my personality has always been kind of a dual battle between the two of me having the outward personality of not giving a shit, being not the best at being tactful or not saying what I'm thinking and being kind of fun, and also having, you know, crippling anxiety on the inside and being shy. So there's always kind of this battle between the two that's existed. But the older I get, the more, you know, the kind of not giving a shit person kind of wins out, because it's just a lot easier to live that way. And I think that also the fact that at my core I'm pretty much a nihilist also helps.
Yeah, seeing that nothing matters. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, like it just doesn't really matter. But that being said, I'm just like everybody else, where it's easier said than done, and it doesn't always work out that way. So it's like I know people that who are on social media, or specifically Twitter, that have much bigger of a platform and audience than I do, and it affects them. Like it really does. And I understand why. Like, people are just really toxic, and they don't understand that no matter who you are and how much you don't give a shit and brush it off and have don't take yourself that seriously. I mean, it's still, after a while, you start to believe what everyone's saying about you. So it's like, I kind of understand that at a certain point, no matter how good at it you are to just kind of not care, it gets to a point where it's unhealthy, and no matter who you are, it needs to not be in your life. So I'm hoping that it doesn't get to that point ever for me, where I have to just completely disconnect from social media for my own mental health. But I just kind of constantly have to remind myself that, like, it's not that serious. And if more people just kind of realize that, then it would be a lot easier. I've never been suspended, though, surprisingly. I don't know why. I feel like, I don't know, I can't think of anything that I would have said that would have gotten me suspended necessarily, but
Right now, it's not about what you do. It's I'm Republican. That's why I'm suspended. I feel like if you came out and you're like, hey man, I'm Republican as fuck right now, people would get pissed, and we're basically we're in a digital civil war right now, almost like a culture war, and I think that people are very just like, people hate like people that have different opinions no matter what they are. And I think that's more or less what I think. Mine was, I ran for Congress, so mine's more politically geared, I think. But I do nothing different than what you do. I just talk shit and have fun. I do the same. I literally did the same shit. But it's just political times, man. Twitter, Silicon Valley is like super like radical left, not just Democrat, like radical left. And then so I mean, they don't believe in free speech. They don't believe in shit like that. Like, they're, what I mean, from my perspective.
Yeah, and I kind of try and stay away from political stuff for the most part.
You should.
Sometimes I feel like as an artist, like, you just kind of can't not express yourself the way you want to.
Yeah, and I need to learn that too. I need to learn that too. Like you said, the no one gives a fuck thing. It's like I was like, robots with ray guns thinks you should vote for this. No one gives a fuck. And the same way, like, comedian Anthony Rogers thinks that this. That both, no one gives a fuck. And I need to realize that. And like, honestly, I think you're making a smarter, wiser decision by not giving a fuck. And I get passionate. Go ahead. I think I cut you off. I didn't mean to do that shit. I was
no, I get it, but I think that it's one of those things where I realize that it's not worth it to even go there, because it's not a good platform for something like that. It's really not. And so, like, it's weird because depending on what you look at, some people think that I'm like a radical, right wing or left wing. Like, it depends on what you look at this point.
Yeah.
I noticed
that too. Yeah.
I'm one of those people that, I mean, I'm personally pretty liberal, and I always felt like I was very liberal minded. Nowadays, I don't know anymore, because but I think the thing to think about when it comes to that is that platforms like Twitter, Instagram, mostly, Twitter, it's like those people with the voices that are the loudest, that are saying things, and a lot of times it'll seem like a mob mentality when it's really not. Like, most people aren't that crazy, or don't, completely draw conclusions from what you say and think you're a piece of shit or a god based on something you say. Most people just aren't. So you just have to kind of remind yourself that, like, these aren't real people. These are people's internet personas,
avatars. Yeah,
these are only a small fraction of the people that want to be vocal, whereas most people, I'm not trying to get on people or something like that, because it's not that serious. I don't care. And so those people that are doing that, their opinions don't matter anyways, because it's not representative of what most people think and where they're at. so I think a lot of times, I think it's crazy that things get picked up and made a big deal over like tweets. Like I recently, like it wasn't like a huge deal or anything. At least I didn't think so. But then like I was getting like messages that it was like affecting other people or whatever, where I was just bullshitting and making jokes. And I think I made a joke with about Cupcake, and she responded, and I wasn't even really sure if she was being serious or not, but she was just like, don't include me in this demon stuff or whatever. Like I'm not all about that satanic stuff in the industry or whatever. And I thought maybe you should just, because we're cool, and I mean, like, as far as I know, we're still cool. But like the fan bases, like the audience, they make things out of nothing, and then it becomes like this big thing. And I think she ended up kind of melting down a little bit, and like posting a video or something. Everything was deleted though. But I mean, on the one hand, it was kind of serious because it's like, okay, obviously this is affecting this person, because people are saying, I'm not going to support you because, you called out this person for this, and then somehow became about Lil Nas X, and it's just like this whole crazy thing that just happens like that.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I don't even know where it comes from. And it seemed to like affect her, and she was like, fuck all y'all if you're not going to support me and everything. But on the other hand, I can't help but find it hilarious and funny and to joke about, because at the end of the day, like, these people's opinions don't really matter. My opinion doesn't fucking matter. What I say about this person, it doesn't matter. So that's, and I forget constantly that people actually see what I write, even if they don't necessarily respond to it or like it or retweet it or whatnot. But like, people see what I write, and hopefully they understand where I'm coming from. But at the end of the day, if they don't, I don't care. It's not my problem that people take it seriously, when it's, to me, Twitter is just a platform to not be that serious, for the most part. And especially for someone like me who's an artist, it's like, take everything with a grain of salt. At the end of the day, I'm just trying to make weird shit.